Hello and welcome back, everybody, to The Advisor Seat, a series from Solomon where you get to meet the people behind Solomon Strategic Advisors. And I'm very excited to have Debbie Hutchison-Davis in the studio today, who is a top 10 OKC coach. And I really want to have a conversation around coaching. So welcome, Debbie. How are you today?
I could not be better. I love hanging out with you, love talking about coaching. So life is great today. Thanks for asking.
For folks that don't know you, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, first of all, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a Mimi, I'm a mother-in-law. So I get all of those privileges and feel very blessed by those. I think to my core of who I am, I have a really strong work ethic. And I also naturally see the potential in other people. And so how that translates to what I do today, that strong work ethic comes with, I like to work. I like to collaborate. I like the challenges. I enjoy that type thing. And naturally seeing potential in others, my desire is for them to be able to step into that potential, right? That's my natural interest. And that is what honestly led me into coaching, because that's a little bit of what coaching does. So about 10 years ago, a little bit longer, I went down the path of International Coach Federation certification, got that certification after hanging out in the oil and gas industry for about 20 years. And then even 15 years, I didn't realize it until today when I was putting it together. I have 15 years of entrepreneurship experience as well. So all of that combined actually got me to where I'm at today, allows me to be able to, I can draw from that as I sit with folks in that coaching space. And to kind of segue into what got me to the coaching space, I remember such a painful, horrible experience. And this is one of the questions you asked me in advance. So thank you for this. But I was sitting in a group leading a meeting, and we were really struggling with an initiative that wasn't moving fast enough. Everyone was really frustrated. And we have the list of things that we're supposed to tackle in that meeting. And we weren't tackling them. We were attacking each other. And I'm leading that. So I left feeling really defeated, really frustrated, and like, what on earth? And it was off. It was so off. It was horrible. So left that meeting, went and pondered it, thought about it at lunch by myself. And so bizarre. There was a group of people, two people, not a group, two people sitting next to me having a conversation with a similar outcome that they were frustrated by, that I just happened to hear. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is not a me problem. This is not unique. This
Yeah.
is a big human issue. And my logical brain went, if we can learn creating drama, putting roadblocks in front of people, blaming people, all this negative stuff, if we can learn that,
Mm.
the opposite is, which is where that work ethic and joy comes from, we can learn something new. We can learn
Yeah.
something great. We can learn how to do it well. And that's honestly when I made my decision. I shifted gears. I went, I have to learn this. I have to do this. We have to do better. And I think the hard part in that was looking within, because, I was coming to that table just like everybody else,
Yeah.
judgmental, full of drama, assuming worst. And I
Mm.
had to overcome this whole idea of people aren't just trying to be difficult. They're actually doing the very best they can.
Yeah.
And then I had to show up differently. I had to make that shift and make that assumption that, guess what? They are doing the very best they can. And if they are doing the very best they can with the information that they have,
Mm.
how can I show up so that they feel comfortable speaking their truth, and we can build on that and build on that so that they're receptive to more information and learning and growing. And that was the skill I was looking for. That was the nugget I was trying to find in the coaching space, and why I chose to go down that path.
What I hear you saying in that too is just the significant impact of you changing you and your mindset and your growth actually had a ripple effect where
100%.
you showing up differently, and whether or not they knew it, I guess we're learning from each other. So
Yeah,
when one person can show up differently to the table, you're not just doing it for you, you're actually doing it because there is an exponential impact.
100%. So that itty bitty self awareness as a leader that changes to a maybe smidgen change in behavior. So I'm aware. Now I make a small change. has such a ripple effect to the team initially, but also to the culture. And
Exactly.
when I sit with leaders and I hear them complain about the same things I was complaining about and frustrated by, it's like, I get you. I get you. And there is a journey to get out of that. And you have to be willing to be curious. You'd have to be willing to be open, and you have to be willing to experiment and get it wrong because it's not a clear path. And it can be such a joy. It gives me goosebumps.
I love that. And
Me
even,
too.
something that I wanted to talk about was I think sometimes executives or organizations may struggle with the investment in one person or in a couple of people, thinking, gosh, that's quite a significant investment for that person. But actually, it's not just an investment in that
Mm,
person, because if you
right.
do have executive coaching and you do show up with that different mindset and you're growing as a leader, it is changing the culture. And so it is an
Absolutely.
investment in the organization.
Absolutely. And especially when we make a point of being intentional about that. It's like get feedback from your team, let them know what you're working on, engage them in the process, and they get momentum around that. The minute they stop living in this square, this little teeny tiny area by themselves and feeling that heaviness as a leader, and they step into that open, I'm okay. I don't need to know all the answers. My job is to collaborate with my team and pull that out as a group. The minute they step into that safe, if they can create that safe place and do draw that out, it is really powerful.
Yeah.
It's fun to be there. It's fun to watch. It's fun to see them develop and grow like that.
Yeah. And it sounds freeing. I feel like anyone that's listening to that who is struggling with those pains that you mentioned.
My gosh, and that's when you think about return on investment, feel like rather than focus on the cost of it for one leader, asking the question and what is the return on investment is what happens if we don't do this? Do we have a high potential that actually leaves? Or do we have someone who goes from possibility thinking to cynical? Do we have conflict that destroys our team? Do we have these things that ripple through our organization that is negative? I think about the people that I work with. Yes, they're cost conscious, but that's never a conversation. It it feels like to me the people that I work with, one, all of them are most of them, not all of them. The initiator is familiar with coaching. And so they realize the benefit already. And so it's not about necessarily what is it for them, what is the outcome and what is the cost. It's more about, how soon can we see results? They're so,
Yeah.
they're more impatient, which the flip side is it does take time. It does take time to see the ripple effect, but it is a beautiful thing. And we do get to keep track of that and celebrate our wins for sure.
Yeah, that's great. So coaching can, for some people, mean the basketball court, the football field. We think of coaches very
Hmm.
traditionally out in sports, and then you might have heard a life coach or various different types of coaches. So
Hmm.
at Solomon, we specialize in executive coaching. Can you talk a
Hmm.
little bit about what the executive member of staff might experience with that
Hmm.
service?
Yeah, good question. Well, I feel like all coaching focuses on forward momentum, right?
Mm,
We're we're considering who you are as a person and how you got here. We have to look at that, but it's forward momentum. And so as an executive, there's a lot of obviously leadership in that space. So we're asking the question of who are you today as a leader? So we can take inventory, we can get feedback from other people, we can all kinds of ways to gather information. And then where do you want to be? I mean, that's ultimately what coaching is about is where are you today and where do you want to be? And what can we draw from the past, your experiences, your personality, your work ethic, if you will? What can you bring to the table to help you be successful as you navigate? What also do you bring to the table that is going to get in the way?
yeah.
And I think with executives at that high level, they've been really successful and they are really good. And it's lonely to be there where they're at. And people don't always give them honest feedback because they're at a high level where is it safe? They're not sure if it's safe to give this leader feedback. And so we get to sit in that space and give them hard feedback sometimes. And I always say, if I upset you or frustrate you, I'm doing my job.
Oof.
And our job is to illuminate the other side, which is not always beautiful. sometimes you're a great leader and you're getting a lot of things done, but you've run over people in the process. Sometimes you're a great relationship builder, but you haven't held people accountable. And so bridging those gaps and helping them see that is our job. So high level, forward focus or future focus, leveraging strengths, being aware of gaps, putting a plan together, and helping them get from where they are to where they want to be. And that is a journey that looks different for every leader, every executive,
Yeah.
requires, I think, different tool sets for different folks. Sometimes we focus on an area. I end up getting called into the conflict space a lot because that is one area of expertise that I have, and teaching them how to sit with the feedback, right? That is
Mm.
hard. And the discomfort of how do we create a space where people feel safe to have those conversations?
We help illuminate the other side,
Mm,
the side that
mm,
they don't have light on, like a blind spot. And so I'm thinking about this experience of being coached and having the other side illuminated, and then you leave, and I now walk the rest of my week or my month
oh,
with a whole lighter side of me, and things are now drawn to my awareness, and life is now changing because of that hour we spent together where things were illuminated.
mhm. I've had that experience with a coach, and that happened on a Friday, called on a Monday and said, okay, now I need a therapist. Because it can be hard looking at the other side. We all think we're doing a great job based on our intention. We
Yeah.
assume everybody knows our intention and we're forthright in that. And that is furthest from the truth. It can be a lot. It can be
Mm.
overwhelming. And usually if I'm having that conversation and I see that there's this light bulb or all of a sudden really heavy thing, I will say, let's touch base next week because I want to make sure that everything is, what you are considering now that hasn't been considered in the past, you're okay.
Yeah.
And, they always say they are, but the reality is we're still going to check in. It's
Mhm.
still something we want to make sure that they're okay with. And then, that awareness, I think what is fun about that is you create this awareness and then they tell everybody.
Mm.
And
You're like,
everybody else is going, oh
"Look at
yeah,
this side
well,
of
you're
me."
just figuring this out. We've known this for a minute. But they're
Yeah.
excited to be able to say, okay, gosh, we now have this awareness. What do you do with that? Had a leader, we did a 360 and I gave him his report a couple of weeks ago. And then we talked about it today. And he said, well, you didn't make me cry. And he said, nothing hugely alarming, but he's like, how do I bridge this gap? He said, I've been working on this for a year and it's still a problem. What do I need to know about that? And so unpacking that can be really good. When they get to the point where they're that vulnerable, that open, potential is just beautiful.
Wow. So you mentioned the 360. So talk through some of the tools that you like to use if someone
Okay.
is being coached.
Right out of the gate, the very first tool that I think is simple but gets missed a lot is a 30-minute intro. Because I think you have to have a good match between the person that is being coached and the coach. And so that 30 minutes of just getting to know each other is really powerful. So thank you for the opportunity to be on the podcast because people will know a different side of me.
Yeah.
And that's fun and helpful, right? Helpful in going, I could never listen to her voice or I love her energy. Let's hang out. So that's one tool. Another tool is heritage inventory, and that can look different. You can be very formal in taking that inventory, and we have a form that we follow or a process that we follow. That can also look like building rapport, and that is just maybe 2, 3 sessions where tell me about your education, tell me about how you grew up, where you grew up. That all matters,
Yeah.
and tell me about what you're doing today. A little bit about what your work is and what challenges you have, and the ability to. I think it's beautiful for us as coaches to gather that. But the beauty of it, I see, is the leader gets to tell their story. And sometimes they don't get to tell their story in that type of environment situation. And I see people feel like get people who cry.
Yeah.
It's emotional. It's like they've never sat with their story. I'm not a crier. Every time I have told my heritage inventory story to our team, I cry because it's like, wow, I'm being seen and that just feels great.
Mm.
So heritage inventory assessments. So personality assessments are are also helpful. It's helpful in creating awareness around who you are. So that helps lend itself to more confidence. I've seen people step into their personality, if you will, a little bit stronger, or their tendencies of how they behave. So I've used lots of assessments. My go-to assessment is the Five Voices assessment. And I love it because it presents both sides. It's like, hey, this is what you can leverage and this is what you need to watch out for.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting always. People step into that, oh, this is who I am. This is wonderful and exciting. This watch out for, we have to be careful that we don't use that as an excuse. We watch
Yeah.
out for it so that we manage it versus somebody else manages it for us. It's exciting. It's fun creating that awareness, giving words to behaviors and normalizing the conversations about where we're great and where we're not so great. And then I think about my favorite tool that I use is what we call a know yourself to lead yourself. Maybe it'd be a great add-on to put into your notes.
Yeah.
But the know yourself to lead yourself tool is put on an infinity loop. And it's on an infinity loop, which when I first learned it, I thought, oh my gosh, I have to have it tattooed on my wrist because to me, it frames leadership is a never ending journey. It's just ongoing for forever. And the thought process behind it is that you know yourself to lead yourself. And there are ways that you can look at your tendencies to understand your current situation to say, this is how I got here, and this is what I want to do more of, and this is what I want to do less of. And then the flip side of it is you go, here's where I'm at. What tendency caused that? And
Yeah.
it's just a fantastic tool. Love it. I use that a lot, especially when I set goals, right? So if we're moving forward, it's nice and powerful to say, this is what I'm working on. And these are the things I will be doing for the next 3 to 6 months to be able to accomplish that goal. I run and I actually train for triathlon. So it's like setting a triathlon goal or a half marathon goal. You have to eat right. You have to hydrate. You have to exercise. You have to do all of the things to be able to accomplish that goal on a day-to-day basis. It becomes who you are. And the goals that they set aren't always that heavy.
Mm,
They're little, but we want to be actually taking this awareness into action
yeah.
and then paying attention. I always align it to a chemistry experiment. It's like if you're doing this, let's see what the outcome is. Pay attention to how they respond. And do you want them to respond that way? And if you do, keep doing that. If you don't, we need to adjust.
And I think for people experiencing coaching, that's one of the benefits is you are holding them accountable to action. There may have been an awareness, but what are you doing about it? We can work together on that and I can hold you accountable until it becomes that practice that you are now motivated to actually
Mhm.
continue life in that way.
Yeah, 100%. It's so beautiful. Accountability. And then I would also say support because they don't get a lot of support at that level,
So
truthfully.
true. Yeah.
So, seeing them, going through the pain with them, being a trusted confidant, because again, leadership is very lonely. And to have somebody, that's one of the things I think I get pulled in and held on to a lot longer than the actual agreement
Yeah.
because you build that rapport, you build that trust, and you become their person to just process data through, strategize ideas in a safe place. I would also, so goal setting, I think, is at the peak, but I also think, I don't know that I have ever coached a leader where I didn't get pulled in to also work with their team. And so that's another element that is really powerful with executives is then they have the ability to experience that for themselves, that they get excited and they want to bring it to their team.
Yeah.
And we have the ability to do that too. And I would say, gosh, I don't know that I have a leader that I haven't worked with that hasn't had some kind of team work in their space. And that feels very natural, right? They're working on this and it's like, my team needs to know this.
Yeah.
And it is really powerful.
And then how do you integrate the team in? Do you do group coaching and kind of align those tools and that growth journey? Or do you do more individual coaching with peers?
Oh my gosh, beautiful question. So usually we start out with a fun workshop because we want them to get excited about it. And Five Voices is the most fun workshop. Creating awareness around your tendencies and potential triggers and weapons is fun. And so we always start out there. And I usually get a read. Obviously the leader has a read on what he thinks is needed. And we come back together after that workshop and collaborate on what potentially is a good strategy. And then of course, other elements buy in, what the team might have been introduced to. Do they have a connection to me? Would they be willing to work with me? What would that look like? So I've started out with individual coaching. Usually team coaching happens over a period of time. We've worked together. So it could look like individual coaching or probably another workshop. Some folks do quarterly workshops. Some folks do monthly. I have a group right now I'm working with. They're going on their second year, and they started out with just a training. They wanted training on how to give feedback. I said, let's talk about what your ultimate needs are and let's understand that. And then they said, okay, let's do quarterly training. And then it morphed into, can you come back next month and let's keep doing monthly and they're 5-hour sessions every month. And I would call them a little bit of training and a little bit of coaching. And it's team coaching. And we work through some really hard stuff, but it is so good. And they just signed up for another year of it. So it is great to strategize with them, honestly, around all of the options that they have and what is the best, and do the exact same thing that I encourage them to do in their leadership journey. Pay attention to the outcome. Is it what you wanted? Let's do more of that if that's what we want. If it isn't what you wanted, let's regroup and do something different.
That's fantastic. So, who do you think is the ideal candidate for coaching?
Well, I think we all need a coach and and a therapist and a consultant and a mentor and, all of them. So I think an ideal candidate is anyone who feels like they might be carrying the weight of the world by themselves. I think an ideal candidate also has a trait that they've gone from reflective to responsive. And then I would also say that they might be starting to get a little bit cynical.
Hmm.
And so those folks probably have a higher urgency than just the everyday person. I coach leaders at a lot of levels. I coach at a high executive level and I coach brand new leaders, managers. And I have a couple individual people who just don't want to do life alone. My very first client that had is still with me. And her goal was to not drive her husband crazy because she was getting a new job and needed to be successful. So, I think it varies, but overall, I think the warning signs, if you will,
Yeah,
of too much pressure and you're all out there all by yourself and
yeah.
you're losing your mojo.
So then that brings me to ask, what type of challenges do you hear from leaders?
How do I get them to take ownership? How do I communicate with the next level?
Mm,
Those are some I'm currently working on. Delegation is a big one because a lot of times these leaders are high performers and they don't know how to let go. I mean, they're just high performers, so they take everything on. So letting go, delegating is one. We have a 3-year contract with a group right now who called us in to support them, the leader, specifically in structure, like organizational structure change
yeah,
at that his location. And what that looked like is we have new roles and responsibilities and a different way of doing things. And everybody understood that to some degree, but not clearly. So helping clarify and then bridge the gap between all of the leaders and then come together. We literally just celebrated them this month because it's so exciting when they are like, they're moving and grooving and we can move to the next level. I think I mentioned this earlier. Conflict is a big one that I see. People immediately think if we have conflict, it's a negative thing. And I'm like, no, we want to invite conflict. We want to remove drama. So conflict is healthy. We don't grow, we don't change, we don't get better if we don't have the conversations. So how do we sit with that when you and I don't agree? How do I regulate and say it's a different perspective? It's not an attack on me. And so teaching them to sit in that space, actually sitting in that space and working through that and working through the escalated voice and going, not responding to it, but going, that was you got triggered here. And what was that? And let's talk through that so we don't let that happen. That's disruptive. That's not okay. It's not part of our agreement. And so conflict is something that I get brought into change. We have a lot of change and things are coming at us at a fast pace. As leaders, they're desperate for help. And there's only one of them to go around. How could I support them as leaders? Those are just a few. Anything you would add to that?
I mean, I'm still stuck on we invite conflict and remove drama. I
Mhm.
just love how powerful that
Mhm.
is because
Yeah.
you're right. And when you know your tendencies around conflict, you get to step into a space where you're like, I'm ready. I'm ready for
Yes.
it. Come on.
Yes.
Because us on the other side, the whole experience in the organization on the other side of conflict, when you have it without the drama, is amazing. You get kind of addicted to what else can we disagree on so that we can
Right.
be better.
Yes, and it's not like puffy chested, all flexed, ready to go. It's
Yeah.
this healthy tension that we
Yeah.
can work together it's like a puzzle, right?
From a
Where is
group of
that one
experts.
piece? Where is
Yeah.
that thing? Where is that perfect? It's so beautiful. That feels great to me to be able to have I've had clients text, "We just sat through this and we didn't beat each other up. We're all walking away laughing and we talked about the topic." And that just like is such a good place to help them shift into it. People ask, "What do you do?" And I'll share, "This is something I focus on." And they immediately go, "We don't have conflict." That in and of itself is conflict, right? And so it's an indicator, and I'm like, "Okay." And I
Yeah.
just roll until eventually it's like, "Yeah." I had a guy yesterday say, "Yeah, we don't sit well with all of this stuff, Debbie." I said, I know.
Yeah.
We need to work on that."
What other outcomes would you throw out there that you've seen from a journey in coaching?
The confidence piece,
Mm,
just by creating awareness around your tendencies and stepping into that, confidence has momentum behind it, right? If I'm confident, I can step forward. That behavior moves into action, of course, and then that has an impact on the rest of the team. So, and that is messy at first. Sometimes I step in when I shouldn't and it fails and I feel awkward or people say something. But at the end of the day, we're playing with stepping in. So confidence, I think the ability to think strategically improves when you are working with a coach. And I say that because they have to prepare to be in that setting. They have to be thinking in the future. They have to come into that. And coaching naturally is poking at what about this is important. And it helps them think beyond just the thing. And why? Why is this important? So understanding it and thinking strategically about it and tying it back to organizational. Is this a me thing or is this an organizational thing? If it's a me thing, is it healthy? And in theory, it should be a healthy thing if it's organizationally connected. So I think helping folks think more strategically is an outcome. Awareness, obviously, self-awareness. I mean, that's usually pretty quick. And interpreting that awareness, right? Because they think that that's awesome and that's confident. Well, it's like sometimes it's not awesome. Sometimes you have to pull back a little bit. So stepping into that space, obviously, I think capacity, right? And I equate capacity to we're not attacking everything. We learn to prioritize what is a problem and prioritizing back to my story. Sometimes it's you. Sometimes you need to take a step back and really be a little bit more curious, not judgmental, right? Good old Ted Lasso. I love him.
speaking my
And
language
so,
now. Yeah.
yes. And so just creating that curiosity, I think allows them to be more open, be more self-aware. So those are some of the outcomes that I've noticed. Peace of mind.
Mm. Oh,
Not alone, not alone. I think that's a big one. I get texts and calls and this formal meetings, it's knowing that you're not on an island and that
mm.
leadership can be really hard alone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I feel so good about that. Debbie, I just got a life coach as well. I love how you're talking about it and the experience of it because I'm actually living it in real time. So, a sprinkle of free coaching for anyone listening. I'd love to end it this way. If you could only take one action this month to become a better leader, what would you recommend?
so one, that is a very good question, a very thought-provoking question, and that is a coaching question. So I want to highlight that. And my response to that is how can we be more curious? How can we be more curious about the intent of someone? How can we be more curious about what someone said, the meaning behind what they said, the word that they chose, how they showed up, why they're focused, what's going on? How can we be more curious as opposed to what Ted says, don't be judgmental.
As Ted says. Hey, that's
Yeah,
fantastic.
mm,
Okay, this has been a wonderful experience with you. Thank you so much for your time.
my
And
pleasure.
I know that folks can go to solomonsa.com and check out the team and check out Debbie and get in touch with her. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week.
Pleasure. It was great hanging with you this afternoon. So thank you.